See if that works. Should work. All right. Yep. I forgot to get my comments reader. Hello, David. Give me a second. I forgot to get my laptop out. That's why I read my comments on. So, yeah, I usually always forget to do something right before I go live, and I thought I had everything ready. I had my hat on. I had my camera set up. I had my secondary source to make sure everything's working properly over here. And, well, I forgot my laptop this time to check the comments. So, as always, I guess that's on me. So, yeah, just give me one more second. And I will get to comments and all that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the race this weekend, or races, I guess. The multiple NASCAR races, the F1 race. Obviously, the F1 race for the win wasn't that entertaining, but you had Lance Stroll coming back from 10th, or from last to 10th, I should specify. I feel like everyone always has low expectations for Lance Stroll, but to start out the season going from last into the points, impressive from Lance Stroll. Carlos Sainz on the podium, and then that was it really for F1. That's it. So as for the NASCAR races, yeah, Raja Caruth got a huge first career win. The Truck Series race was great. I mean, great racing throughout the field, great racing up front. There was no really one guy who dominated. Caruth had probably the strongest car, but I mean, Kyle Busch led some laps there. I'm trying to think. Ty Majeski had a great truck. So, there was some great racing in the trucks. Xfinity wasn't as good, but was decent. And then Cup was a pretty solid race. Yeah, Larson led a lot of the laps, but still, solid race. So let me know what you guys, the 5 of you watching, I want to know what you guys thought of the race. Obviously, I didn't do my normal post-race recap because I was at the track, so I think I had a good excuse there. But I'm very curious to what you guys thought of all 4 races that happened this weekend, because I enjoyed it. Hello to Daniel Barry Sports Highlights. Hope you're doing well. In between the lanes. Hope you're doing well. As for the misspelling on the last name, don't worry. I've seen worse misspellings of both of my names, and I've heard my name butchered a lot. So trust me, it's not the first time it's happened, and it's not the last time. So you're all good. Micah, how are you doing? Hope you're doing good. What did you think about the Cup race? I thought it was a decent race, better than last spring, even though Larson dominated the day. It was still some solid racing throughout the field. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Last spring, it was like Byron jumps out to a 3-second lead over Larson, and Larson would just kind of chill there, but they were like 6 seconds ahead of everyone. And then Larson got the lead for a bit late in that race. A late caution happens. You get an overtime restart, which is a little exciting, but Byron pulled away, and he was the most deserving winner that day. Whereas this, it was domination by Larson. Yes, he led 181 laps, swept the stages, but ultimately, it was close. Reddick was right there, and I think if Reddick got ahead of Larson, I honestly think he could have pulled away. Larson obviously had the best car the majority of the day, but that last run, I think Reddick was better, which made it more entertaining. Obviously sitting in the stands, like literally, I used the backstretch. They have the Nellis straightaway painted on the backstretch. I was kind of using that as the closing gap to see how much Reddick was closing. And one of the really cool things that I thought was really fun was watching Bubba and Reddick work together. Bubba had some mechanical problems, was multiple laps down, but that car, once they got back on track, it still had speed, top 5, top 10 speed. And they were essentially drafting together, pushing each other down the straights to help catch up to Larson. I thought that was a great way to use teamwork. And, you don't really see drafting, pushing, that kind of thing on a long run outside of super speedway. So it was really cool, really awesome to see that. Like, I was watching it the whole time, like genuinely entertained. Like, I don't ever see this. Like, this is really cool to see Bubba multiple laps down helping his teammate try to win. But other than that, yeah, it was a solid race. It was a good race. There was great racing throughout the pack. Not as much drama as 2 springs ago when Bowman won, but ultimately still a solid race. Not the best race ever, but it was still a good race. Was Kyle Busch was hoping for a Kyle Busch truck win and a good finish in the Cup race? Yeah, trucks early on he looked really good, but as the race went on, he just kind of fell back a bit, and then I think he had a penalty in that race. As for Cup, he had a penalty, had top 3 speed early, kind of fell to the top 5, top 10-ish later, and then ultimately a pit penalty killed him. I still haven't seen the penalty yet, so can't really comment further on it because I don't know. But yeah, that was Kyle Busch's day. Kyle Larson is proving he is one of the best drivers in the world right now. He's going to do some big things at Indy. Yeah, I was in Vegas, so looking at odds a lot, and I was surprised to see Larson so high up. He was like 15-1 to win the Indy 500. Obviously, he's a world-class talent, if you ask me. He can drive in anything, dirt cars, cup cars. I'm very curious to see how competitive he is at Indy, as you said, but I think a win is a bit of a stretch for Larson, but top 10, he's going to be in a competitive car with Arrow McLaren, but I'm curious to see what his times are, to see where he qualifies and all that stuff. Obviously, he has to qualify for the race first. Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch representing BetMGM. Yeah, there was one point in the race that they were like side by side with each other. I was like, oh, BetMGM just got themselves the perfect promotional picture with Kyle Busch in the 8, Austin Dillon in the 3, and the BetMGM car side by side. I was like, man, they're going to use that as some sort of promotional picture in the future. Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, good battle. Yeah, and I still don't get why Reddick went low with 2 to go. I get that it was kind of a guessing game. Larson kind of trying to use the air to play defense a bit. But I just think Reddick should have stayed loyal to the top. Even if Larson went up there with him, I feel like he could have at least stayed with him closer than when he went to the bottom there. But ultimately, it cost him a chance at the win. Lap and a half, lap and a quarter to go. It cost him. But I think if he went high, he would have had a better chance. I still don't think he would have got to Larson. I think he would have had a better shot. But to say he would have for sure got there, that's a stretch. Reddick not happy with the pit crew. Yeah, I didn't see exactly what happened. We didn't really have a great angle on the TV, as you'll see in my full video, which I'll probably put out tomorrow from the weekend. But yeah, it was... The 2311 pit crews have been disappointing over the past couple of years. Bubba has had multiple chances at wins. The big one that stands out to me was Kansas spring of 22. Bubba had a top 3 car. Him, Kurt Busch, Kyle Larson were the 3 best car driver combinations that day. And Bubba's pit crew cost him multiple times that day. And ultimately, Kurt Busch was able to hold off Larson for the win. If Bubba's pit crew was up, they just had good, decent stops, they would have been in competition for that win. Now, ultimately, they got redemption later in the year, winning at Kansas in the fall. But, we've seen multiple instances of both teams having this. And Denny Hamlin talked about it a little bit. He's like, if you look at Trackhouse, a team that was started the same year as 2311, Trackhouse acquired literally everything from Chip Ganassi Racing. Chip Ganassi Racing was a solid program. No, they weren't a Hendrick. They weren't a Gibbs. They were kind of like that B-tier team. They could compete for wins every once in a while. They'd run top 10 for the most part, and they had solid pit crews. 2311 didn't do that. They acquired the charter from Starcom, Germain Racing, whoever it was, and so they kind of had a little bit more difficult time putting their team together. He kind of specified that. So it's interesting to see Hamlin talk about that, but yeah, definitely disappointing for sure. They gotta get on top of that. So we'll see what happens. Any schemes you like this weekend? That's a really good question. On the Xfinity side, for the 20 laps he was on track, watching SVG, that was a pretty paint scheme, which I hope you guys like the hat. Got it because we've been talking a lot about SVG on here, and the Australians and the New Zealanders Love SVG, so I'm appreciative to all of you who keep up with him and keep up with him through the channel. Very thankful. But cut paint schemes. The Bet MGM, the Kyle Busch's, Austin Dillon's. I didn't like the orange 3 on the roof. That was random and just out of place. But the 8 car I thought looked good with the gold and the black. The 9 popped out on the track, the Lumar scheme with the teal number. I used to hate the teal number, but now that it's a solid red car, the teal sticks out and you can tell which car is the 9. Other than that, I'm kind of just running through numbers in my head here. The 7 didn't look terrible. It was an all right paint scheme. Hamlin's got that basic kind of sports clip scheme. The 12 Pennzoil scheme is basically the same it's always been. Briscoe scheme is the same. The 16 didn't look bad, the orange and black. Buescher's new paint scheme for the 40, 50, however many laps we got to see it was not too bad. Truex had the same scheme he usually has with Reesers. Bell's Interstate Batteries was pretty. The green stood out. You were able to tell where he was. And oh my gosh, Christopher Bell had a terrible day. He spun like twice. He had 2 or 3 cut tires. Christopher Bell probably might have had one of the worst races in his Cup Series career. So that stunk. Logano's Pennzoil scheme is so much better than his shell scheme. They put some creativity in it. 24, the 24 was really pretty. The HP or whatever with the blue and black looks so much better than last year's basic scheme. Other than that, though, I mean, I can't think of any one scheme that just stood out to me and, screamed at me. The 24, you could argue I'm biased on that as a Gordon fan, but I thought the 24 was pretty. Larson's last couple Vegas wins were similar. Last fall had the dominant car and held off Christopher Bell, who's faster the last run, and same thing with Tyler Reddick last Sunday. Yeah, it was basically the same script almost, sweep the stages, win the race, but, he didn't win it by 5 seconds or anything. He really had to, focus, be locked in for those last few laps because the second place car was better than him. Ultimately, he was able to hold off both, and ultimately last fall's finish was a little bit more exciting with Bell getting to the bumper of Larson. Whereas Reddick, as I said earlier, with that taking the bottom with 2 to go, just kind of screwed up his chances. Trash bag caused temperatures to rise for Byron. Yeah, that was confusing because at first I saw Byron pitting and I was like, why is he pitting? There's like 20 to go in the stage. There's no need to pit. And then you could tell because there was some black on the hood of his paint scheme and I was like, I think that's just his paint scheme, but it also looks like there's more black than there was earlier. And then they show on the video board, the giant trash bag being ripped off the car. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably a problem for the temperatures. And that's ultimately what happened. So, yeah, ultimately Byron, he still scored a top 10. So a good finish, a good points day, but could have been better. They showed a lot of speed in those early stints before the trash bag. He led some laps early on, was running top 3. But I just don't think they got to show their real speed throughout the day just due to that early setback. They weren't able to fully overcome. But, as I said, they did get a top 10 finish out of it. Bubba Wallace should win Texas last year. Yeah, Bubba Wallace, these mile and a halves, he's got them figured out. Yeah, he didn't have the result on Sunday, but that was ultimately due to the wheel failure. They couldn't get the wheel off, something like that. But he's really fast at these mile and a halves. Kansas, he's got to win at. Was running top 5 last fall before ultimately cutting a tire. He qualified really fast in Las Vegas. He got the pole at Texas last fall, and as you said, had a really good shot at the win, but ultimately finished second, third in that race. I can't remember exactly where, but ultimately had a really good finish, and I expect him to run well at the mile and a halves once again. And I expect Toyota to be good at the mile and a halves once again. Toyota's really good at that style track. This new body, they proved it again. Ty Gibbs got a top 5. Tyler Reddick was competing for the win. Truex, Hamlin were up there in the top 10. Christopher Bell, if he didn't have all those issues, he probably would have been top 10. So ultimately, Toyota still fast at the mile and a halves. Chase Elliott's Napa scheme from the Clash should be his primary scheme. I get why you say that. It was a nice scheme, but I'm more of a fan of the blue Napa schemes. They did that white base usually with some blue on it or the split, and I like the blue more, but that's just me. Obviously, who is that? Micah has a different opinion, and that's fine. You can have a different opinion, but ultimately, I just like the blue better. I couldn't tell you why. I just do. I really dropped again in the fantasy league, says Craig Thompson, which is a great point. Let's check on the fantasy standings, shall we? I peeked this morning at the fantasy standings. I have moved up. Thank goodness. I was like 11th or 12th. And it's been a rough go so far in the fantasy league for me. But we've got 14 competitors in our fantasy league. If you want to join, I'll put the link in the text, whatever it's called, the chat, and you can join the fantasy league. So let me pull up the league standings first. And we have a new leader in our NASCAR fantasy league. But before that, I am going to give you the link to the fantasy league. So for those of you who want to join, you can join. I got to do some copy and pasting here, so this could take about 15 seconds. Copy that, delete that, and for those of you who would like to join the Fantasy NASCAR League for this channel, there you go. You can join the Fantasy League, but let's look at the standings for the Fantasy League. Our new leader in our official channel league for Fantasy NASCAR 2024 is Zerkman95 with 550 points. He is your new leader after 3 races this season. It Factor Auto Sport Incorporated, or Inc., or whatever you want to be called. You've fallen off, man. You're in second. You're now at 504 points. Obviously, you haven't fallen off that much because you went from first to second. Still in contention, obviously, very early in the season. But you sit in second. Big Hat LJ is in third. PC underscore 18 in fourth. Dan the Jets fan is in fifth. Otter Bear 8 is in sixth. Pins underscore 22 is seventh. Hell on Wheels 24 is in eighth. I'm in ninth. So I'm in the top 10 of 14 now. Woo. 10th place is 45 and 2311 fan. 11th place is RT Racing. 12th is Dr. Zero. 13th is Stevie G. And 14th is Shane Van Hamburger Buns, who still has 0 points. So Shane Van Hamburger Buns, if you're out there watching this, if you're one of the 7 people watching this thing right now, set your fantasy lineup this week. You are the NY Racing of our fantasy league. So that sucks for you, I guess. But you had 4 weeks to get some points. And ultimately, you have fallen behind. So, but yeah, my fantasy league this week, or my lineup was, I think, Larson, Blaney, or not Larson, it was Byron, Blaney. I think I had one of the Toyota drivers, probably Truex or something. I can check. I'm kidding. I already changed my lineup. Who did I have? Let's see here. This is tough to figure out. Where's roster? Okay. All right, I'm going to figure this out eventually, I promise. Okay, I had Byron, Blaney, Chastain, Logano, and Hamlin in my lineup, and then Kyle Busch as my reserve. I picked Suarez to beat Briscoe. Got that right. I picked Logano to beat Truex. I got that wrong. Picked Bubba to beat Ty Gibbs. I got that wrong. And I picked Brad to beat Chastain, and I got that wrong. So those head-to-heads I really suck at. Well, that's all for fantasy. Back to the comments we go. Joey Logano and Ty Gibbs racing for the win would be exciting. Yeah, considering their history, because apparently Joey Logano doesn't like Ty Gibbs, and Ty Gibbs doesn't like that Joey Logano doesn't like him. I'm telling you, man, I said it in the preseason. That race at Las Vegas made me feel more confident Ty Gibbs is getting multiple race wins this year. He's in a Joe Gibbs Racing car. He's got a year under his belt. He has shown much improvement. Ty Gibbs is winning at least 2 races this year. Just saying. He was really fast. Ultimately, him having first gear kind of screwed him. I think if everything went right at that last pit stop, he ends up staying in the top 5 like he was running earlier. I think he could have been there with Reddick competing for that win, catching up to Larson, but that's not how it went. So ultimately, fell short, but Ty Gibbs has been very impressive early on this year. Joey Logano obviously has been insane in qualifying. Like, where did this come from? Joey Logano, I get he had the illegal glove that 1 week, maybe 2 of the weeks. But where did this come from? Genuinely, why is he so good at qualifying? Makes no sense to me. I got $600 in bets going. Noah Gragson makes the playoffs. I think I'm going to win the bet. Yeah, so your name is Diehard NG10, which NG10 I'm assuming is Noah Gragson 10. And Noah Gragson impressed this week. Stewart Haas Racing, on this channel, we have made fun of them a lot. Noah Gragson had himself a day, had a poor qualifying effort, qualified 30th or something, but his practice speed was not bad. 5-lap, 10-lap, 15-lap averages, they were competitive. That showed on Sunday. He ends up finishing 6th in the race, a really good start. And this is after, of course, the big penalty that his team got hit with, losing 35 points. He's back in the points, by the way. He was at -6 entering the weekend. He is now plus 25. So from the points situation right now, I think it's going to be tough for him to point in. Yes, it's still early. He's going to need a lot of those top 10s, though, to point his way into the playoffs. So you're going to have to look at a win. And my question is, where would a win happen? And I'm trying to figure out here where a win would happen. The short tracks have been Ford's strengths over the past couple of years of the next-gen era. So I think ultimately it would have to happen at a short track. We're obviously going to one Phoenix this weekend, so I'm curious to see how it's going to work there. But, you know, how's he going to do at Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond, that kind of thing. And then obviously super speedway. Stewart Haas has shown speed at super speedways, but I'm curious to see how Gragson himself does at super speedways. I know he won at Talladega in the Xfinity Series. I was there for that race, and I think he's won at Daytona, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong there. What track does Chase Elliott win this year? Road course. He's won at Coda, Watkins Glen. He's won at the Roval. So I think, you know, a road course is your best bet there for Chase Elliott winning a race. But some of his best ovals, I think Martinsville, he's got a shot if he can, you know, last spring, if you remember, that was his first race back from the leg injury, and he finished top 10. So Chase Elliott, he's really good at Martinsville. If you're looking at the ovals, Kansas has been a solid track for him. Where else has Chase Elliott been good at oval-wise? Martinsville is my way out in advance guess. If it's not a road course, Martinsville. Nashville, he's done really good at the next-gen era. He won in 2022. He finished top 5 in 2023. So there's some options for it. And then super speedways. For some reason, Chase Elliott has been really good at the super speedways in the next-gen era. I don't know why, but he has been. So you got a good chance there. Who is your pick to win Phoenix? Phoenix. Unfortunately for me, the odds for Phoenix were not up when I came home. I took off and they were not there yet, and I landed and they were there. And I was in a state where you can't take those odds. But value, Brad Keselowski was like 25-1. But if you want to be realistic, once again, I think Ford's going to be good at this track. Chevy, I think will be good as well. Don't get me wrong. Toyota is a question mark. Toyota struggled on the short tracks in the next-gen era, so I'm not going to, you know, for sure be confident in them yet. But I'm going to say a Ford for now. And this guy, he has never won at Phoenix before, but he has won a championship at Phoenix. I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney. Blaney's been really fast at Phoenix. It's one of his best tracks statistically, even though, as I said, he doesn't have the wins there. But I think he can get it done. I think he can, have top 5 speed, winning speed. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Blaney for now. Way too early pick, I guess, but Ryan Blaney, there you go. I think he can win COTA or Bristol. I'm assuming, is that Elliott you're talking about, maybe? Yep, that's where his first win came from for JRM in 2020. I went from junior to Noah. Yeah, I guess he was at JRM that long, 2020 to 22. I don't know why. I thought it was so much shorter. I thought it was just 21 and 22, but well, yeah, I mean, Gregson in the Xfinity Series had quite a bit of success at the super speedways. Then I didn't know that, but I mean, I knew Talladega, as I said earlier, but I didn't know about Daytona. But as for super speedways, if it was the Xfinity side, nope. Austin Hill's got you there. It doesn't matter if everyone runs out of fuel. It doesn't matter if he leads the whole race. It doesn't matter if he's in the middle of a wreck. Austin Hill's going to win. 2019 to 2022, my goodness. I didn't know that. I was wrong on Noah Gregson's years in the Xfinity Series. All right then. Just heard SVG has been announced for an 8th Cup start this year at Daytona. Ooh. I thought he was always scheduled to do Daytona. I saw that in the sponsor announcement. I made the post about it for his new sponsor with the nice, bright car. I saw that he was going to have that sponsor for a Cup race, but because his schedule consists of COTA coming up in 3 weeks, he's going to race Cup at the Coke 600, I think. Talladega, both Talladegas, Vegas in the fall, Kansas maybe, but Let me confirm this information for you real quick. Who asked that? Powder. I'm confirming this information for you real quick. 2024 NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Shane Van Gisbergen will be racing at COTA, both Talladegas, Charlotte in May, Chicago, Watkins Glen, Las Vegas. So yeah, Daytona was added. I missed that. So SVG will be racing at Daytona. He's going to have another super speedway under his belt. They're giving him all the super speedways. Whew, that'll be a fun one for him. Daytona, late in the season. People going for the last playoff spot. So that will be that'll be something for him to learn. But super speedways have been fun to watch this year. So I'm curious to see how he does in the Cup car. Obviously, we saw him do pretty good in that Xfinity race at Atlanta, finishing 3rd. And Daytona, he was sloppy at times, but ultimately he did, finish, 12th, 13th, 14th? Somewhere in the top 15. But Shane Van Gisbergen, he's been doing good so far. Chase Elliott wins the Brickyard. I have not done a deep dive into Brickyard stats yet because ultimately that's still 6 months away. 5 months. What month are we in right now? March. So, 4 months away. Math is hard. But Elliott's best finish at the Brickyard. Did he ever... has he finished top 5 at the Brickyard? I know he led laps in 2019, 2020 maybe. But there are some people, Nolan, I know who you are, Nolan, and to answer your question, yes, I can see your text messages showing up on my screen. But Chase Elliott at the Brickyard, I don't remember what he did at the Brickyard, honestly. There's not even a lot of active winners at the Brickyard because so many have retired. Harvick's retired, Jimmy's retired. Gordon's been retired a while. But, looking at active drivers, Kyle Busch has won a Brickyard. Brad Keselowski's won a Brickyard. I'm struggling to remember who's won a Brickyard outside of those two. I genuinely can't think of anyone right now. So My preseason pick was Byron because the 24, Jeff Gordon won in 94, 2004, and 2014. So Byron to keep the years that end in 4 trend alive. But, Denny Hamlin's had some good runs there. He's been short in terms of the finish, in terms of getting the win. But he could be up there. Larson, you expect Kyle Larson to be quick everywhere. But I guess that's a very, very 4 months early prediction and slash preview of the Brickyard 400. But I really want to see how the next gen races at that track. The Gen 6 at the end there with the 550 package, it straight up sucked at that track. But with the next gen car being so good at these intermediates and Indianapolis being kind of an intermediate, I'm optimistic for the racing there. I'm optimistic. The Toyotas did run well at Richmond and dominated Bristol last year. They haven't been bad at short tracks. Yeah, they haven't been terrible by any means. It's not like they're running 9th at best. Well, early in the next gen era, actually, that's about what they did. But they've improved. But I'm trying to remember when the last time they won a short track was. Martinsville 2022 with Bell? Is that it? Is that it? Has Truex won it a short track? Does New Hampshire count as a short track? New Hampshire and Dover, I never know what to do with them because they're a mile long. Dover races like an intermediate, so I've always leaned intermediate on Dover. But New Hampshire is flat. That's a debate that'll go on forever. But no, like Toyota's no pushover or anything, but statistically speaking, Chevy and Ford have won more races at short tracks in the next gen era, and they've won more races. Chastain won at Phoenix last fall. Blaney won at Martinsville. Who won at Richmond last year? Chris Buescher, Prosper, Texas's own Chris Buescher won at Richmond. So, you just go and look at the numbers, and they'll tell you that Ford and Chevy are better at these short tracks. So, that's all for now, I guess. But ultimately, that's my initial thoughts, I guess, on this weekend, is that I would lean heavy towards Chevy and Ford. That doesn't mean a Toyota, it's impossible for them to win. It's just I expect Ford and Chevy to be better. Now, remember Noah with legacy at Coda. He can good before his rival wrecked him. Gibbs, of course. Can't say I remembered that. The only thing I remember from Coda is Reddick leading a lot of laps and the end being absolutely horrible with all the wrecking and the dive bombing and going 7 wide for 21st. It was a little bit of a crapshoot there. This year, I hope they clean it up. I think they're going to move the restart zone back to turn 20 rather than having it be on the front stretch, just to make it a little bit more reasonable and a little bit more spread out before they get to turn 1, so people can't kamikaze it into turn 1. But yeah, we'll see. We got 3 weeks to Coda. We'll see what ends up happening. Elliott in 2020 was one of the best cars, led 30 or so laps, but the car went away and he still got a top 10, but could have been a win. Are we talking about the Brickyard? I think we're talking about the Brickyard there. Yeah, as I said, I couldn't remember what year, but I remember him leading laps. I just couldn't remember if he finished well. So, I guess 2020. There you go. There's your answer from Micah. So, good job, Micah. Thank you for that. Nemechek ended the Chevy win streak this past weekend. Yeah, everyone had been talking about that. I hadn't really thought about it until it got pointed out. Chevy won the trucks and Xfinity at Daytona, and then Byron wins the 500. Chevy wins the trucks and Xfinity at Atlanta. Suarez wins the Cup race. And then this past weekend, Caruth wins the truck race, and then John Hunter Nemechek ruins the Chevy party by winning at Las Vegas. So ultimately, yeah, I'm not shocked to see John Hunter Nemechek win an Xfinity race. He won 7-8 races last year, and he's also still in a Gibbs car in the Xfinity series, so it's no shock there. Gibbs was confusing this weekend on the Xfinity side of things because Chandler Smith and John Hunter Nemechek dominated this race, ran 1-2 the majority of the race. But then Sheldon Creed ran like 11th to 15th the entire race. And Eric Almirola got up into the top 10 for a bit, but then got caught up in a wreck and was irrelevant the rest of the day. So half of Joe Gibbs Racing was, just absolutely drop kicking the field in the face. The other half of Joe Gibbs Racing just kind of existed in the mid-pack. So I don't know what to tell you there. It's a little confusing. It's a little confusing. If you wonder why I keep going for the water, it is hot in Texas. We have cracked 80 degrees for like 4 straight days. Thankfully, I missed 3 days of it because I was in the freaking 60-mile-an-hour gust of wind in Las Vegas. I'm not complaining. I was at a NASCAR race, so there's no need to complain. But it was absurd, the amount of wind. Saturday was forecasted to be heavy wind, and it's like, okay, buckle up. We expected this. But Sunday, they said it was supposed to be a little bit normal. They were saying about 15 to 25-mile-an-hour winds, no major gust over 25, 30 miles an hour. Sunday felt worse than Saturday. I felt deceived. It was not fun sitting in the wind, but it's not like a rainstorm or, anything crazy. It was just annoying. I think that's the right word. Annoying. The wind was annoying. So once again, no big complaints about it, but just, yeah. But anyways, back to the point at hand is that I keep grabbing this water because it's been over 80 degrees in Texas, and the design of this room I'm in, there's an open window and it makes everything hot, and I can't put a shade up because it's a complicated process, and it makes the room hotter than it actually should be. So cold water. Don't forget to hydrate. Denny Hamlin won the Bristol Night Race last year. Wow. I forgot about that. Wow. Yeah, I guess he did. Oof. Ugh. Reddick and Busch, good battle last year at COTA. I remember they finished 1-2, but I don't remember it being close. The late restarts just being chaotic. I thought Reddick really just got away and ran away. And then I remember, Kyle Busch finishing second. So I don't remember. I remember Reddick and Byron had a good battle for the lead, but that's about it. Joey Logano and Ty Gibbs fight for the win. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. If, things got crazy because they don't like each other. What are your thoughts on Matt Kenseth maybe driving the 84 a race or two for Legacy? Oh my goodness. Are there rumors going on right now? One of my bold preseason predictions. I kid you not. You can go back to my preseason prediction video from 4 or 5 weeks ago. I said one of my bold, way out there, way random predictions is that Matt Kenseth would drive a race for Legacy Motor Club. I had no instincts on it. I had no, rumors that I had read. I just threw it out there as an idea. What if it's happening? Is it happening? You better not get my hopes up. If this actually happens, boy, let me tell you, in November when we do the postseason, looking back at my preseason predictions, if we do that video or live stream, whatever we do for that, if Matt Kenseth actually drives for Legacy Motor Club, I am going crazy. Like, I will talk about it the whole live stream. I could miss every single playoff spot if Matt Kenseth drives for Legacy. I am putting so many check marks in my book for getting things right from that alone. Not a rumor, but my thought. Oh, man, you got my hopes up for a second, Craig. You don't think of Vegas with the wins this past weekend. Not 100% sure what you mean by that, but yeah, it can get windy in Vegas just because I think it's the Las Vegas Valley and weather and pressures and a bunch of stuff that's way too big for my brain. But yeah, it's windy there. Sometimes the landings and planes can get a little bit sketchy just because of all the wind, but ultimately it's safe. But yeah, the wind this weekend was just absurd. There was no thunderstorms or anything, so it's not like a giant system went through, but the wind was just crazy, man. So yeah, that was ultimately it. Hydrate or dihydrate. That's quite the extreme there, Nolan W. Both Hendrick cars won the races, were great, says Aiden. Yeah, Hendrick cars, Rick Hendrick, very happy after this weekend. Raja Caruth, obviously, proving to be a worthy investment for Hendrick Motorsports, for HendrickCars.com, Rick Hendrick, whoever made that deal. They were only initially supposed to do a part-time schedule, but ended up opting in for the full season. And Raja Caruth's had himself quite the season. Top 5 at Daytona, I think. Then the win at Las Vegas, his first career win. That's a huge win for him. That's a huge win for Spire. But for him personally, just his journey, kind of like William Byron, his career started on a computer. And yeah, so it was a really cool win for him, really big win for him. Really cool to see that happen. And ultimately, yeah, it was a huge, it's a big deal for him. It's a big deal for NASCAR. So it's a really exciting time for him. And I'm very curious to see what he can do this season. Obviously, we saw this one race. It's the third race of the season. So, no, we don't want to overreact. But at the same time, this was the first non-super speedway of the year. If he did this at Daytona and people were talking, oh, Raja Caruth's going to go insane this year, it'd be like, all right, pump the brakes. This is super speedway. Things happen. Calm down. This is Las Vegas. This is an intermediate track. This could be legit, like what if he's putting together something special here, I guess. So really fun to see him win. And then obviously Kyle Larson, he's won so many races in that Hendrick cars paint scheme. There's a reason they ended up investing in him. Obviously, the first reason, he couldn't get sponsorship early in his Hendrick days, but then after all the winning, after the championship, they ended up saying, all right, we legitimately want to sponsor this guy. We want to sponsor his race car. It's not just Rick Hendrick pulling money out of his own pocket to fund the car. So Hendrick Cars has made some good investments in NASCAR, it's safe to say, and we saw it when they won 2 of the 3 races this weekend, and they got a chance to do it next weekend at Phoenix because Byron will be in the Xfinity Series 17 Hendrick Cars car. Ty Gibbs lost first gear and still got a top 10 finish. I think he went on the radio, and these transmissions stink. Yeah, he actually got top 5. He was competitive this whole race. I said it a little bit earlier in the stream, but I told you in the preseason, I think he's going to win 2 or more races, and this race helped my confidence there. I mean, he was up there with his teammates, Truex, Hamlin, battling Reddick at times, battling Blaney at times. I mean, that car was really fast, but ultimately not having first gear hurt him. And I think he could have competed for the win if he got 3rd or 4th on one of those restarts late, but ultimately not the case, fell short. But still, a very impressive run from Ty Gibbs to get a top 5 at Las Vegas. Legacy Moto Club Extreme E Team, are they going to win in the series this year? That I have no idea. I couldn't tell you anything about Extreme E other than it's electric vehicles on dirt. There's a Legacy Moto Club. Lewis Hamilton has a team, and Nico Rosberg has a team. That is my extent of knowledge on Extreme E, so I apologize, Aiden. You are asking the wrong person that question. I couldn't tell you. I like the Chastain. Is it Kubota? However you pronounce it. Yeah, the orange sticks out on track, obviously, with the gray and the silver, so it's a nice paint scheme for sure. Trackhouse does not miss on a lot of paint schemes. For the most part, all their paint schemes look fantastic. They flow well. They got the shiny chrome numbers. You got the orange numbers sometimes, the green with Daniel Suarez on the Freeway Insurance car. Trackhouse does not miss on paint schemes. It's beautiful. I love it. So I'll agree with you there in between the lanes. Some great looking race cars. William Byron's iRacing setup includes an HP computer. I did not know that. I don't know much about iRacing other than it's like a computer game thingy. Jimmy Johnson wins this year. That is a very bold prediction. Jimmy Johnson, since 2018, has had some horrid luck in the Cup Series. Missed the play or made the playoffs and had a chance at the win in 2018 and wrecked himself, which I guess you could say that's not luck. That was on him. 2019, he missed the playoffs. 2020, he missed the playoffs. And then he comes back to NASCAR. He wrecks out of the Daytona 500 in 2023. He wrecks out of COTA on lap number 1. What other races? He wrecks out of the Coke 600. He wrecks out of the Daytona 500 again this year. He, as much luck or whatever you want to call it that he had from 2006 to 2017, skill, luck, whatever you want to call it, he put it all in those years, and ultimately it has all gone away since joining Legacy Motor Club. Since owning the team, you know, they've had some good results, but as a driver, he has had some horrific results, and I would love to see Jimmy Johnson win a game. Don't get me wrong. Who asked that? Where'd it go? It's somewhere in here. David. Ultimately, that'd be really cool to see Jimmy Johnson win a race. But I just don't know, man. He's had some terrible luck, and to be honest, I just don't know. So I doubt it. I'll take, if you put the over-under at half a win, I will take the under on that number. HP scheme looks good as well. Yeah, I agree with that. Christopher Bell, first race representing Interstate Batteries this past weekend. I did not know that. Obviously, I knew that he was in an Interstate Batteries car, but I didn't realize that was his first race doing it. Anytime it's not on the 18, it looks a little bit weird. Even the 54, it's not as weird on the 54, but just a little bit weird. But when it's on the 11, I scream. It terrifies me. The 19's a little bit terrifying, but not as terrifying. The 20 is just kind of, so I get what they're doing, but it's weird and it scares me. Well, let's see. What have we talked about? We talked about the Cup race. We talked about trucks a little bit. We touched on Xfinity. We talked about F1 at the beginning of this thing. I talked to you about the Fantasy League standings once again. I don't know how to really make this, like, how do you copy a message? Ooh, you can pin a message. That's fancy. How do you do that? I'm not an expert at these live. Oh, look at that. I haven't done a lot of these live streams, so you got to stick with me. You can pin a message. So, in the pinned message is the Fantasy League. You can join our NASCAR Fantasy League. Weekly lineups, as every fantasy NASCAR league is. We got about 14 members right now. So, feel free to join. Feel free to come on in. Try to beat everyone. 14 members, as I said. Our leader is Zerkman95 with 550 points. And in last place in 14th is Shane Van Hamburger Buns with 0 points. So make sure to join on in our fantasy league. Get yourself some fun. We're just doing it for fun. Trying to have a good time. Justin Haley win this year. Rick Ware has stepped up. I think both their cars finished on the lead lap this past week, which is a big deal for them. Let's say they're going to win a race. I feel like it's a bit of a stretch. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen at Talladega or Daytona. I don't even think Atlanta would be realistic. I know it's a super speedway now, but ultimately I don't think that would happen. But I think it would be Daytona or Talladega, but I don't think they win this year. I don't think Justin Haley wins this year. Matt Smith, acting legend, asks, what's the name of the fantasy league? It is called, I usually just put the link everywhere. I think it's just like the channel name. It's the Nikolai P. Culp Official League. So that's how you know. If you're ever looking for it on the NASCAR Fantasy page on NASCAR.com or the NASCAR app and you don't know what it's called, you can't think, oh, what's the name? You just remember the name of the channel. You put that in there, and then it should be the only result unless someone is copying me and making their own league of me. Then in that case, that would be unfortunate. I don't think that's illegal, so I can't do anything about it, but it would be unfortunate. So ultimately, tough scene, I guess. But yeah, that's the name of the fantasy league. So I guess I'll type it out for you. There you go. I love how it highlighted my own name. That's weird. Maybe I only get that. I don't know if you guys see that either. Once again, I'm not an expert at this live stream thing. That's why I only just do the camera and me, and I got my laptop to read comments. I can do stuff on this laptop, so like you can see my screen. The only problem is my laptop is really old, and it sounds like it's going to explode when I do it. So cannot risk that. I think Prosper, Texas' own Chris Buescher incident occurred during a commercial break. I was watching Black Flags Matter live stream during the race as well. So Chris Buescher, there was a caution that's thrown, and I didn't see it because I was in turn 4. This happened in turn 2, and there was some shade in turn 2, so it was a little bit difficult to see. But, you know, everything's yellow all of a sudden. You look at the TV screen, and there's a car with a bunch of smoke, and there's a car coming down the racetrack, and I was like, oh, man, it's Chris Buescher. I had him money on him to get a top 10, and that's not happening now because he just smacked the wall. And then you look at it, and he drives by, and everyone in turn 4 grandstands are like, is that his tire? Like on the side of his car? Like, what happened there? So basically, his wheel completely just flies off. His tire gets stuck on the car and drags it all the way back to pit road, which, by the way, update on that. Two crew members have been suspended for 2 races due to the failure of the tire. If a tire or a wheel, whatever, falls off during the race on track, it is a 2-race suspension for the 2 crew members who improperly installed the tire, the wheel, whatever the official wording is. It used to be a crew chief suspension, but then they figured out that's a little bit too extreme, so they adjusted the rules, and it's the crew members. So Chris Buescher will have 2 different pit crew members this upcoming week and the week after at Bristol, and I guess we'll see what ends up happening there. But there was ultimately action taken due to the crash. But yeah, kind of a freaky crash. It looked like a flat tire at first. And remember, Christopher Bell had a flat tire like 10 laps into this race. So everyone, this is lap 30, lap 40. Everyone's like, oh man, like, is this race going to be a tire failure 400 or what? But ultimately it was the Bell thing looked like it was a little bit of a fluke. And then Buescher was because it was not properly installed. So yeah, and then the red flag. I kind of forgot there was like a 20-minute red flag to fix the wall. Can't say I've had that happen in a race I've been to before, but now I can say I have. They had to fix the wall in 1 and 2 due to the tire failure and the wall getting hit pretty hard. They had to, what did they have to do? They had to weld the wall back together or something like that. So good for NASCAR to stop the race, not burn off laps under yellow so that they could fix the wall in their own time. Made it to the lead in fantasy. We'll see how long this lasts. So you are Zerkman95, I believe. Yeah, so congratulations to you. After 3 weeks, you are the points leader in the fantasy league. You high five. There you go. It's week 3. So yes, celebrate being early. Celebrate, being ahead. Celebrate leading at some point, but it is still early, so no championship trophy for you yet. Any other races you are going to this year? Yes, I'm going to races. I got to finalize the plans, but obviously my home race is Texas, so for sure that's 15 minutes away from me. I want to go to COTA. That would be nice. I got to finalize the details on that. I'm waiting for word on something before I ultimately announce any decision on going to that race or races. And then as beyond that, to be determined. So Texas, I'll say for sure I'm going. Coda, I'll say Cup, I'm going, but everything else is up in the air. But ultimately, we'll see. Obviously, Vegas was a really fun race to go to, and then obviously you guys seem to love the at-track action. The viewership on the channel has been record-breaking in the last couple of weeks, which I'm very appreciative to. I know a lot of that is from Australia and New Zealand who want to see how Shane Van Gisbergen is doing, which I still appreciate you guys very much. But even, some of my normal Cup Series videos are doing great. So I'm really appreciative to all of you, obviously, for the viewership, subscribing. As I said, we're breaking like every record, every statistical record on the channel, it feels like. So I'm very thankful for that. It's been a great start to March, and I hope we get to continue on throughout this month and then just keep on going. So once again, very appreciative for all of you. Yes, Matt Smith, I see that you have joined our league. You are tied for 14th now with Shane Van Hamburger Buns, who has been in the league this whole season. So good job. You're tied for 14th, and you've only been in the league for a couple of minutes. Plenty of racing left. Yep. I thought the F1 race was Saturday night at 10, not 10 a.m. Well, yeah, they are in the Middle East, so it's a night race, so it's going to be kind of mid-morning over here in the U.S. Why are they doing it on Saturday? I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just genuinely curious. Like Bahrain and Saudi are usually Sunday morning, or Sunday evening over in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. But why are they doing it on Saturday morning? I forgot it was on Saturday until like 2 weeks ago. So why Saturday? I'm very curious to what the reasoning was for that. I don't know if it was weather related, if it was, travel logistics related or what, but I am curious why they opted for Saturday. Aiden asks, are you going to Chicago? I don't know. For now, I'm going to say no. It is a little far away, and those tickets are pricier and whatever, but I will let you know. So for now, it's no, but some things fall into place. You never know. So for now, no. I think I asked you this before in a live stream, but if your channel wasn't racing related, what would your channel focus on? I'm a big enjoyer of movies. So movies, TV, all that stuff. I love movies and all that. Love going to a movie theater. I prefer the theater. Don't get me wrong, watching a movie at home is fun, but you can never top the theater experience if you ask me. A giant screen, giant speakers, sitting in a nice comfy chair, giant bucket of popcorn, and the movie theater popcorn is supreme, by the way. The microwave popcorn, they can try their best to be like the movie theater popcorn. No, you cannot top it. No. So ultimately, that is, for me, I love movies, so that would be my plan B. Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, his last win, Saudi 2021. If we had to put bets on when is Lewis Hamilton's last Mercedes win, I'm going to have to go back almost 3 years to Saudi Arabia 2021. Mercedes, I just don't trust them right now. They didn't miss it bad in terms of, they're not like running at the back or anything, but in terms of their normal competitiveness, fighting for the win, they missed it. They missed this car. They missed this power unit setup, whatever you want to call it. And ultimately, it's cost them. They have one win in 2 years, and they may not get another in this era. They might, but they are not getting more than 5 wins in this era, is my guess. I'm very confident with that number, but Mercedes has really dropped the ball here, and I think that's ultimately what led to Lewis Hamilton leaving. But I think that's going to be his last win with Mercedes. Saudi Arabia 21. Religious holiday in Saudi on Sunday. Makes sense. Bahrain had to be at least 7 days before, so that got bumped to Saturday. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So a holiday, holidays across the world observed by usually different sorts of sports, motorsports, obviously. I mean, NASCAR used to not race on Easter up until a couple of years ago, so it makes sense why they don't race on whatever holiday it may be. So makes sense. I respect it. What other NASCAR YouTubers do you watch? Obviously Eric Estep's a big one in terms. He's got what, like 200,000 subscribers. So I'm always curious to hear what he thinks on stuff. But I don't consistently watch many others. I mean, I'm subscribed to some, like some of the ones who make kind of the evergreen content, something that you can watch 5 years from now and it's still relevant, kind of a historic thing. But I'd say E-Step's probably the only one I watch consistently just because, he talks about all the news and all that kind of stuff. And he's got unique takes on it, which is a good thing. But usually, I mean, he's pretty, I'm trying to think of the right word, like evenly minded with his takes. I'm not saying he has absurd conspiracies or anything. But he's pretty, he's pretty chill. He's pretty cool. He does a great job. So I don't know how else to say it. I feel like the way I'm saying this, the more I talk, it makes it sound like I don't like him, but just straight up, I think he does a really good job. He does a great job at giving his takes because he does a great job at delivering the news. So there you go. There's your answer, I guess. But, Well, has it been? It's been an hour, so thank you guys for watching this. I've had a good time. I'm glad that we're making this a weekly thing. I know it's called the Monday After because it's the Monday after a race, but ultimately we're going to call it that. Keep the name consistently, but it's going to be weird when it happens on Tuesday like this week. Yesterday was a travel day for me. I didn't get home till late, so I'm ultimately going to make this a weekly thing. I'm going to try to do it on Monday, but even if it's not Monday, we're keeping the name consistent just to keep some consistency here on the channel. But I had a good time doing this once again. I hope you had a good time. Thank you guys for the questions. Thank you guys for everything. It's been a great few weeks for the channel. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your week. Any news that happens this week, as always, I will let you know. And then also, we got a race or multiple races this weekend at Phoenix. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll do our normal Shane Van Gisbergen, let you know how he does on Saturday. And then Sunday, we will do our normal race recap. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day or night. I guess it's night now. So I'll see you guys later.